All right, well, good morning and welcome. Looks like we have returned to the winter wonderland here with some snow on its way. And so we want to make sure over these next couple of days that we're going to be safe here with this weather. If you're an outdoors person, like do a little Nordic skiing, snowmobiling, ice fishing, or just simply get outside, walk around in it, you're going to like it because we're going to get some good snow over these next couple days. So again, welcome. And I hope that you're having a wonderful start to your Thursday. And kind of before we dig into looking at our task at hand, which is our case study of Joseph Stalin, as we know, the past couple weeks in the United States has been very interesting in terms of the political arena. Last week on Wednesday, our nation's capital was caught in the midst of some violent action at the nation's capital. And this week, first time in our history that a standing president is impeached for a second time. So that meant that the House has passed articles of impeachment, and now it's passed on to the Senate for them to decide whether or not to go ahead and have that trial. Well, determine when they're going to have that trial, and the outcome, is also needs to occur, but that's in doubt as well. They need a supermajority, which means I believe about 17 Republican senators would need to go along with the independents and the Democrats, provided the Democrats and independents vote for impeachment or to convict with those 17. So that is in doubt if conviction will happen. So I want to open up the floor here. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions about what has happened yesterday in regards to impeachment? Feel free to add to the chat or unmute. Yes, Ella.
I'm wondering how long it takes for the impeachment to, the trial, because if he only has a few days left, is it going to happen before he would get replaced?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how long it takes for that whole trial and stuff to go through.
Right. Well, you're absolutely correct in terms of how long does it take to actually have the trial. All those parameters need to be set. So the majority and the minority leaders of the U.S. Senate need to get together and kind of set the parameters of what that trial is going to be. And of course, the U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice will be part of that process as well. So currently, the Senate majority leader is Mitch McConnell, and the Senate has convened this week. So that means it really wouldn't be brought before the Senate, or at least put on the docket of the Senate until next week. But that does not mean a trial will happen. In terms of how long it takes, it can be a quick trial or it can be a long drawn out trial. Again, but those parameters, they need to be set. There is potential talk that maybe a trial doesn't happen until after President-elect Joe Biden is sworn in on the 20th, and that's next Wednesday. So what it really looks like is if there is an impeachment trial, it's going to occur after President Donald Trump is out of office, and you can still hold a trial then. There is talk of maybe waiting 100 days after President-elect Joe Biden is sworn in to give the president, the new president, time to kind of get his agenda in place and start acting on some of those issues. And then look at impeaching President now outgoing President Donald Trump. So I can't give you a definitive answer, Ella, on it. So
I
again,
believe
question?
the last trial that Donald Trump faced against the Senate was about 21 days.
Yes. And I think a lot of that has to do with, again, with the set of parameters that were set up and how much time the defense has and how much time the prosecution has. So
Can
again,
you
we're
impeach after the fact?
what's that?
Can you impeach after the fact?
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
It's important that they want him impeached because he's only a first-term president, and they're trying to just kind of so he won't be able to run again or
Right.
hold high office. That's why
Yeah.
the impeachment's so important now.
That makes a lot more sense. Thank
Okay,
you.
and I'll address that question about preventing him from running from office, because that's not necessarily slam dunk if you impeach. All right, now I saw that a hand went up.
Oh, that was me.
Yep. Go ahead.
I don't know if this is like a stupid question, but I don't think I really know what like impeachment actually means.
Oh, okay. No, I don't think it's a stupid question here. So when we talk about impeachment, you are the idea of impeachment is just simply removing from office through a legal process. And in our Constitution, in our U.S. Constitution, it spells out how you can impeach a president, a member of Congress, and someone in the court system, a judge. And there are criterias for each of those different branches and what that means. So I guess when we look at the impeaching of a president and somehow has engaged in high crimes and misdemeanors. And so looking at perhaps his role, in this case with Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, is what was his role in last Wednesday, and did it constitute high crimes and misdemeanors? Did he in somehow engage in seditious action, sparking that violence?
Okay, that makes more sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, good. I'm glad, because I think I kind of started getting lost in what I was saying. Now, to go back with what Grace had said about preventing him from running from office, just because you get impeached and you're charged, and then let's say you are convicted, it's not a slam dunk that you can't hold office or a judgeship in the future. So what the Senate would have to do if they did convict President Donald Trump, and again, only to do that, they have to have 2/3 majority, which is kind of hard considering the climate that we have today in politics to get that 2/3. But it's possible because they did override a defense veto. So once the conviction, let's say it did happen, they would have to follow up with another measure to then say that and discuss whether or not he's unfit to run for office in the future. So they discuss that, and then it would take just a simple majority, 50+1, to pass that measure. Then that would prevent him from running for any type of office in the future, even President of the United States. So we've got layers of process that needs to go through. All right. Anyone else have any thoughts on this? if you're into politics, I mean, this is providing some good, political discussion and a good political show for you.
What are the consequences? Like, because when I think of like a normal conviction, like for an average person, usually I think of like jail time or probation.
Yep.
But like besides getting removed from office, what does it look like when you get convicted? Or is that literally just what happens and then you go on with your life? I have no idea.
Remember there are certain things that presidents get that follow them when they leave office. When they leave office, they get secret service protection still. They get health care. They get a pension, a retirement pension. They get a presidential library. So there are some privileges that they have when they leave office. If they get impeached and convicted, so if they get convicted of impeachment, they lose all that. So, but they don't get jail time. And so again, this is all uncharted because we've never had a president convicted. We've had them charged. The current president, Donald Trump, has been charged. Bill Clinton was charged, and Andrew Johnson was charged, but none of them had been convicted. And again, it's not a slam dunk that he would even get convicted, even if they held off for 100 days, because it requires to get a majority of members of Congress to do that, and it might be, or members of the Senate to do it, and it could be hard. All right. Anyone else have some? This is good talk. Okay. I'm sure it will be interesting as for next week when we do have inauguration of the 46th president of the United States. Because as we know, the FBI has said that all our capitals, including the nation's capital, needs to be on high alert for potential violence. So Wednesday normally for inauguration should be a time to kind of enjoy the transition from one to another or a continuation of an administration. But there's a lot of pomp and circumstances. Well, next Wednesday there could be a little bit more than just pomp and circumstances. So maybe if we can put the month of January of 2021 aside, and might be better. So we'll see. Okay. Again, we're transitioning from talking about elections and drama related to that to authoritarians, kind of like we did last week, and we're looking to transition to Joseph Stalin here. So I want to get to task at hand here. And so you had some focus questions and cult of personality that you need to focus on. And with the focus questions, really kind of review looking at his rise to power. Those focus questions were really zeroing in on a number of things. Mistakes by his opponents. And somehow trying to find a way to kind of marginalize Joseph Stalin, or try to kind of, in some ways, isolate him or disparage him, and they are going to make simple mistakes. Or they simply might join with him against a certain group, and only for Joseph Stalin to turn on him. Key events as well: the death of Lenin, the suppression of Lenin's testament, Trotsky not showing up for Lenin's funeral. Those key events come into play here as well. So we have mistakes by his opponents, we have certain key events, but then of course, Stalin himself, the amount of power that he amassed from 1917 to 1924, in many ways plays a big part in terms of his rise to power as well. And and being able to put people in certain positions who then can help vote out some of his opponents. And so in many ways, Joseph Stalin is using the party mechanism and the government mechanisms to be able to secure power and be the kind of the alpha leader of the Soviet Union here. All right. So in many ways, we look at his path and we can compare that path to Adolf Hitler, and there are some similarities to it. All right. So with that, today I want us to move into now what we'll look at the creation of the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin. And so I do have a little video clip that we'll watch here. And Joseph Stalin is now going to have this task here of now moving the Soviet Union into that new direction. All right, and that new direction that is going to involve some industrialization, but also moving away from some of Lenin's policies and now to what is uniquely Stalin's, or what he views as is important. And so we talk about that planned economy and that planned society here. So I've got a video clip here. We'll watch maybe about, I'd say, 8 minutes of it, and that will launch us into our activity. All right, so let me get this video clip started. Now, one thing when we watch video clips on the Soviet Union, you can guarantee almost like two things. You know, they're going to be tough individuals, and there's going to be some powerful singing. All right, and so what I would think of some takeaways as we watch this, and we'll share those when we get done with the clip.
The Russian masses did have a conductor who directed everything, and it was Lenin. By the time he died, he had created a one-party, one-ideology state and an elaborate system of control. But under Lenin, the aim of socialism had not yet been achieved. His successor, Joseph Stalin, inherited a society in which large parts of the old Russia survived. Peasants were still able to sell the produce they farmed themselves in the markets. Stalin was determined to complete the building of socialism. So he launched the first 5-year plan to modernize the economy. It was a call for mobilization to create the industries the Soviet Union needed to defend itself in a hostile world. Construction worker Tatiana Fyodorova was held up as an example to others.
We live so well. Our hearts are so joyful. In no other country are there such happy young people as us. We're the happiest young people. And on behalf of all young people, I want to thank our party and our dear comrade Stalin for this joy that we have. Stalin set a task. Build this or build that. And thanks to the fact that people trusted him and this enthusiasm of young people, it was possible. Remember, this was a country where people were illiterate, lived in virtual darkness, wore birch bark shoes. Even now, I think it's like something out of a fairy tale. How was it possible at one of the most difficult times to raise these great construction sites? It was only possible through the unity of the people and the love of the people for their idol. Because for us, Stalin was an idol.
With so much built quickly, workers were sent all over the country to fulfill the plan. Tens of thousands went beyond the Ural Mountains to start construction of a giant new steelworks. They saw themselves as pioneers. For Valentina Mikova and Mikhail Arkhipov, these were the most fulfilling days of their lives.
На строительстве домен был один эскаватор, и то плохой. И мы...
There was one excavator at the blast furnace building site, and it wasn't always reliable.
Вот стоит котлован, там,
So we dug all the foundations by hand.
копошатся люди.
The trench would be teeming with people. One takes the earth, throws it to the level above. The second person throws it to the third to the fourth, up to 5 or 6 levels. That was how we got the earth out of the trench. Then it was taken away in wheelbarrows.
Вывозится из этого котлована на тачках.
Magnitogorsk was modeled on a plant in America. Among the workers were thousands of forced laborers, and all lived in terrible conditions.
The beds were in one large room, shared by up to 200 people, often whole families together. There were wooden lavatories outside and a communal kitchen. Water was rationed, and we had to get that outside as well. I think that we, the first construction workers of Magnitogorsk, were united by the difficulties we all faced. We were already schooled in our Soviet tradition. We felt the whole economy was ours, that we were the bosses, that we were working for ourselves.
All right, so here we go. So it definitely, like I said, you could guarantee 2 things: some pretty tough individuals and some singing going on, and some pretty powerful singing taking place here. So do we have any, like, just a little, I know it's just a little snapshot, but do we have like any takeaways from just that little clip? Anything of that you're curious about, or something that you had observed?
This isn't really towards the video clip, but
Okay.
is Lenin the man who kind of like wanted his body to be preserved for a long time?
Oh, no, that's not something that Lenin decided, hey, let's put my body under glass. That's something that the Communist Party or the Politburo leadership decided, we're going to put Lenin under glass. I think there were a number of individuals that would say, no, you just put them in Red Square, but you don't necessarily put him under glass and preserve him, which they still do today, which speaks to the power and that particular symbol or that individual still may have in Russia. They briefly had Joseph Stalin under glass, but then they put him into the mausoleum in Red Square. Okay, yes. The idea that he is idolized. I mean, and the one worker even said, we idolized him. All right. In some ways, it could speak to that level, to that degree of manipulation, creating that cult of personality. Because really, they look at these accomplishments and they point to Stalin. I mean, look what Stalin has done. Think of those political cartoons or those posters yesterday, and reinforcing that kind of idea as well. Okay. Anyone else have some takeaways? Yeah, that one worker said that, it was tough, and we're unified in the idea that it was tough, and we're already schooled in Soviet ways. That speaks volume, that they know that it's going to be hard labor. But they followed up with that there are rewards that go with it. That there will be some accomplishments and some successes to go with it, and so they are going to need to do some of that hard work. I mean, after all, again, 75% of Russians today say the Soviet era was the best time in the country's history. 45% say, yeah, the crimes that Stalin did were wrong, and when we think about just in that little clip, some of that industrial or some of that accomplishment is done through the use of slave labor. And so they're going to get the slave labor from political opponents, from a group of farmers that are going to be known as kulaks, farm laborers, who become dispossessed as they go through collectivization. And so some of this industrial accomplishment is going to be done through slave labor. All right. Any other final thoughts? All right, so if you do have some more thoughts, you can always raise your hand, or you can unmute, or you can put in the chat as we go through. What you can see here on the screen is our task at hand really is Stalin's domestic and foreign policies. It's very similar to that of what I had you look for Hitler and his domestic and foreign policy. So it's going to look something like this. And hopefully you have this downloaded. And I do want you to fill out that top part again here, where we look at the authoritarian. It is Joseph Stalin, the region, and I know we're going to have some philosophical discussions, and Mr. Sheridan, if he was here, we'd probably be talking back and forth. But in IB, they are putting Joseph Stalin in Europe. And yes, we know that the Soviet Union does spread over into Asia, but in IB world, they put the Soviet Union, they put Joseph Stalin in Europe. So let's put that in Europe. And in terms of left and right wing, he's a communist, so that means he is left wing here. Hitler was a right winger. Stalin is left. All right, so that's important. Now, one thing with Stalin is he does inherit, or he takes over an existing authoritarian state. So as in the front end of that video clip did mention that Lenin did put in some framework. Now, Stalin is going to go about redesigning the Soviet Union to kind of reflect his brand of communism, his brand of socialism, which we'll sometimes call Marxist-Leninism. Again, like anything that you do, you got to make sure you attach it to either Karl Marx, the godfather of communism, or Vladimir Lenin, the father of the Soviet Union, and the person who kind of puts a face to communism as well. So just like what you have here in that we did with Hitler, I want you to do with Stalin. And take a look at the economic policies. And in that video clip, did you pick up on what they called his economic policies?
I heard briefly they talked about the 5-year plan.
Yes, yes. That's a good pickup. All right. So Stalin is big into 5-year plans. He is going to move away from Lenin's new economic policies and go to 5-year plans. So this is central planning at its finest here. He's going to have a series of 5-year plans, and it's all about industrializing the Soviet Union. And there's different elements. That first 5-year plan, as like in that video you saw, they got to build the plants. So they're going to be around the Soviet Union. Industrialized plants are going to be built. So that's a big part of that first 5-year plan. And then the second 5-year and the third 5-year plans, of course, World War II is going to disrupt all this stuff, are going to focus on some other elements of the industrial state. Collectivization, agriculture will have its own type of economic plans to go with it. All right, so we got to look at some successes and some failures with it. One thing that we can guarantee whenever we look at successes and failures or we see numbers, countries do a really good job of massaging numbers to show how successful that they really, really are. So when we talk about policy, social policies, again here, youth, women, and religion, and I do have an example here of minorities, racial or ethnic minorities, and it's more here about ethnic minorities in the Soviet Union, and it's more about what we had called, or what they called, the Russification, introducing Russian settlers into the Soviet republics, kind of again spreading that Russian culture and stuff like that, but then also deporting and resettling large numbers of minorities and ethnic groups to different regions, and that this policy came to a front when Russia annexed the region of Crimea from the Ukraine, and there were some ethnic groups in this region that may have opposed, or people were wondering why they are there, and it's just an old Soviet policy there. Soviet Union is a very anti-Semitic nation, and so there are some policies being directed at Jewish officials. And going back to Leon Trotsky was very attuned to the fact that he was Jewish and the problems that might have created if he would have became the next leader of the Soviet Union. And the decolonization policy, kulaks, and I'll mention a little bit about that at another time, but this was part of collectivization, taking over farmlands and making it under the control of the Central Committee. And so this is a policy that's going to contribute to millions of Soviet citizens dying of starvation. It's going to contribute to the famine in the Soviet Union. Taking a look at arts and mass media, we got a little flavor of that yesterday from the cult of personality activity. So you want to deal with that, and then the foreign policy. And this one is, the Second World War, but then also bringing on the Cold War. And so there are a number of policies into play here. But again here, what you need to do is focus on a few aspects that help explain these policies or explain these topics. Bring some depth of understanding in there, and then ultimately weigh in, was it successful or failures? So again, when we look at the minorities, one could look at, he was pretty successful in this area. He imposed the dominance here on the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, but it was at a very deadly cost. Okay, this assignment will be due Monday, so we got some time to work on it. Where do we find the information? Chapter 2 in your textbook, and you can find that textbook in your course resources. Okay, does anyone have any questions on this assignment? All right, this assignment with the assignment that you did on Hitler, these are going to be very important. Because next week, at the end of this hexmester or trimester 2.1, you are going to have an assessment, a short answer assessment. You can find that in Schoology as well. You look into week 7, and you can find the review sheet in regards to that. And it's going to be, the format's going to be very similar to what it was for the causes and effects of 20th century wars. So that will be next week. So I want you to be aware of that. And for tomorrow, we will not have a live Google Meet. I'm going to give you time to work on this assignment. And like anything, this could be a good assignment that you could perhaps work with some historical buddies on it, but everyone needs to still turn it in. You can convert this thing into a Google Doc, and you can work that way with people. Tomorrow, we're not going to have a live Google Meet. I will have the Google Meet open for if you have questions or concerns. You can just pop in at that moment tomorrow with that. Okay? If you don't have any questions, you're free to go and have a great day, or just stay on and I can address at that moment.